What is this? Joe Rogan advises Trump after 2024 victory. Let them all talk their shit. Let's hear it.
Joining me now, Florida Republican Congressman Byron Donalds. Welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
It's good to be back with you.
All right, let me start with this.
Yeah, Mike, give it time. Give it time.
Imagine it would be quite as decisive as it was, not only at the top of the ticket, but the Senate, the House races as well. Still waiting on the House.
Well, I did, but before we get to that, I want to thank the American people for voting for Donald Trump, for allowing us the opportunity to go in there and get the job done and making our...
I would really like to hear, sorry for pausing it so quickly, I would really like to hear the left's thoughts and like someone from the left on how they view minorities that voted for Trump. Like, are they not, I feel like they would be the ones to tell you that they're not real minorities in. And, like, or they've been brainwashed, or I feel like they would make some crazy comments and you'd be like, what the hell? But I would genuinely like to hear the answer to that. Like, how do they view all the minorities that voted for Trump?
Nation great again.
They probably don't have an answer.
But to your question,
an actual answer.
Think it was going to be decisive because it didn't matter what state you were in. The same issues were bothering the American people. A terrible economy, high inflation, open borders, and conflict around the globe. Donald Trump is the person, the candidate, the man with the ability to fix these problems. The American people saw it clearly. That's why his victory was overwhelming.
Okay, let's talk about his critics who have now ominous warnings now that he is once again president-elect. David French writing at the New York Times, if Trump was telling the truth about his intentions, then he will attempt a campaign of retribution and mass deportation that will fracture families, create chaos in American communities, and potentially even result in active duty troops being deployed to our cities. Here's what your House colleague, Democratic Congressman Richie...
I don't think that would happen. I don't think they would deploy active duty troops to cities. No. I don't think so. The only way that would happen is if we just started burning down buildings again because we're upset. Which, given the past, could potentially happen. Seems like that's how they handle things, is by just burning down local businesses. Negative, that's a bit drastic. I feel like it's a little bit extreme. The deportation thing, it's very, very sad to have to do that. But I think it's more sad that someone was put in the position to have to do that in the first place. I feel like that whole thing could have been prevented. And I do think there's things that we can do to maybe expedite the process or maybe make the process a little bit easier for people coming in. Because America's never been about shutting everything down and we're the only ones allowed in this bubble. Dude, America is the most open and the most culturally diverse place on the planet. But you just can't allow, it's national security to just let anyone in. And that's the other part that I can't understand how people don't grasp it, of like, you just can't just unlock your doors into your house. Why do you lock your doors? Because you're afraid of people coming into your house that don't belong there, because you can't vet everyone that's going to walk by your front door. Like, there's a reason you lock it, because you don't know everybody. You don't know everybody's intentions. It's the same way for the country, and it literally is as simple as that. And people don't get it.
One of the fundamental differences between his first presidency and his subsequent presidency,
riding out here because it's a shithole for the most part.
He now enjoys absolute immunity, and he seems to be intent on exacting revenge against his political enemies.
How do you respond to Americans who say they now are fearful about a second Trump presidency?
So weird.
For the American people who've been listening to these lies from the Democratic left, I would tell you this is not something that Donald Trump has ever spoken to or he's committed to whatsoever. There's no enemies list. I mean, yeah, there are people who've been opposed.
I didn't say it.
But he is focused on the American people. Job number one is securing our border and beginning the process of deporting illegal immigrants out of our country. Job number two is getting our economy thriving again, becoming energy dominant again. That's his focus. His focus is the American people, not some enemies list that only gets talked about in the Daily Kos or Salon.com or any other place like that. He's focused on making our country great. And what will happen in our country is success is going to be the measurement that he will use to demonstrate he's back in the White House and back in charge of running this nation. The metric is success.
The issue is that half the country doesn't even want to see it. You could put it straight in their face and they would just look every way except for what you're showing them. And they don't want to, because you can put things in front of them and be like, hey, he said this, so what you said he said isn't actually true because it's right here. And they're like, I don't believe you. Nope. That's the real issue. And that's why I think the people are the fucking problem, because nobody's even open to having their minds changed or potentially being wrong or misinformed. And that's not even at the fault of their own. They just, they're listening to other people around them and taking information. And so they repeat and it's not always right. You know what I mean? But they don't want to be educated. No one does on either side. I feel like doesn't want to be educated, but I think people are more fed up with the left. It's way stronger from the left.
Hey, want to know how
Damn
I got this $50,000 check for an accident I was involved in over 5 months ago?
There is no other measure.
Okay, to that point, Joe Rogan, who was a late endorser.
Oh,
of
the
President
Joe
Trump,
Rogan
said
thing.
He now does have to take this sweeping victory. He's got great opportunity to try to bring things together and get things done. Here's what he said post-election.
And we got a real chance to make real change. He's got to not attack the left and not attack everybody. Let them all talk their
Yeah, don't even go after him.
Now it's time to unite everybody.
There are a lot of skeptics.
I think that was a massive issue with his first run, is that he was constantly engaging in these arguments and these heated debates with the left and constantly attacking them. It's like, dude, just ignore them. Ignore them. Answer the questions, talk about your policies, and then get off the stage. Don't talk yourself into this pit to where you end up saying the wrong things. Everything needs to be short, sweet, and concise. Don't engage. Don't engage in it. Don't be baited by it. That's like the worst thing that he was... Dude, the first time he would just keep rambling and eventually he just starts saying things. You're like, stop talking. You get so aggravated at him. Some stuff that's true, people can't come to terms with. Freedom of speech, if you don't like it or whatever, debate it. That's what we have these rights for. We can all agree or disagree on something, but we can talk about it either way. Both sides can be educated and we can all understand where we're coming from. But that's the huge thing where in the previous video that we just watched, where he was talking about the censorship and misinformation, disinformation, and being able to do all that stuff. I think finding the truth is way harder for people nowadays online. It's so difficult to find an actual answer.
I don't think President Trump is going to be about unity. What do you say to Joe Rogan's point?
I think what Joe Rogan is saying is absolutely correct. And Donald Trump's going to be focused on those things. Look at the announcements he's already made. One of the key things is he wants to support a constitutional amendment to bring congressional term limits. That is something that overwhelmingly the American people have supported.
Yeah,
for a very
that's
long
actually
time.
huge.
Look at what's happening already across the globe. Qatar wants Hamas out of Doha. You have the Chinese are signaling they want peaceful relations. You have the Russians and Ukrainians now saying they're open to talking. The European Union wants to buy liquid natural gas from the United States. This caravan that was building below our southern border is now starting to break up because they know Donald Trump's going to be the next president of the United States, and we are not going to tolerate more illegal immigration. Those are the things that unite the American people. If you have talking heads on the
You know how this can be kind of like, you can relate this? Remember when you had a substitute teacher who didn't really care so much about what was going on in the class, and everyone lost their minds and people are yelling, fighting, throwing balls, spitballs, all this stuff is going on. That's how I feel like our last 4 years is we kind of had this substitute teacher running the country that was kind of just like, I'm only here for a little bit. It's really not, it doesn't matter to me. Like everyone, and then you have the whole world who's just fighting in the lunchrooms, just beating the shit out of them. And now like the actual teachers come back and everyone's like, all right, we got to go back to normal. We're not going to get away with all this crazy shit we were just doing. Kevin, get Gary out of the toilet. Okay. Mr. Trump ain't going to deal with this in the classroom. That's how I feel like it is, dude.
Who still want to go down the line of their conspiracy theories.
It's so funny.
Focused on the American people.
Well, one of the places that he made up a lot of ground with was black voters, black male voters in particular. And I know that you hosted events specifically to have conversations with them. What did you hear at those events that gives you an understanding of why there was that shift in the electorate?
I heard the same thing talking to black men that I heard talking to anybody across our country. How are we going to get ahead and make more money, be able to pass something on to our children? How are we going to secure this southern border? It's not fair that you have illegals coming in, getting gas cards, getting hotel stays and all the like. That's not right. And actually, you'll notice that the city of New York has now announced they're not giving out any more food cards. These food cards.
What?
That's because of Donald Trump and the fact that he won. So what you heard from black men, you heard also from Hispanic men. You heard also from, in part, suburban women. They want a country that is safe. They want an economy that is thriving. And Donald Trump is going to deliver on all of those promises.
So we're going to talk a little bit later in the show about the path for Democrats or Republicans.
Again, I think those issues are too big brain for the left to wrap their minds around. The left is really focused on these issues that are really only like 0.5% of the population. They're really, really, aside from abortion, I don't necessarily align. Okay, I actually am going to backstep a little bit. I agree with Trump giving power or the decision about abortion to the states. I do. And I don't think he wants to federally ban abortion. And I know that was like basically all the left kept talking about is the only talking point they ever had was abortion. But everything else were these really minute, like small percentage of the population issues. And it's like, y'all have lost your minds about like the bigger picture here. Everyone's complaining that groceries are too high. There's crimes going up. People are getting stabbed and shot and killed. We got people coming in that we don't know who they are. The whole world is fighting each other right now. And they're worried about like these small, minute, wild problems. Just, we have bigger fish to fry, you know? Like we have bigger problems. And then when the country's running fantastic, we can start tackling these smaller issues. But, ugh.
And already the speaker is talking about an ambitious agenda for
highly doubt that would happen. I don't think he would either.
White House. Reuters points out this. They say the tax cut proposals that Trump made on the campaign trail, from extending the 2017 tax cuts to abolishing tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security benefits, could add $7.5 trillion to the nation's debt over the next decade. They cite the Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Some of those things are on the to-do list.
I think he already has that planned out, though. Trump's a numbers guy. He's a business guy. And while he's going to make corporations more money, he's going to make it cheaper for them to run their businesses. And in turn, this is the only part that worries me that we've noticed since COVID, is that prices went up, and then when things were supposed to go back down, they really didn't. So I feel like that's my biggest worry, is that everything's going to be made cheaper to make and get access to for these big corporations. Therefore, they're going to start making more money, but people aren't going to be paying any less. I don't have faith that these giant corporations are going to lower their prices. I obviously would love to be wrong about that, but that's going to be a whole issue he's got to tackle himself.
For Republicans. So what are the offsets to those cuts? And what about this issue of the...
Like and subscribe to make me a little bit more money so I can afford YouTube Premium. Thank you.
Which, frankly, a lot of folks think did not get nearly enough discussion, if any at all, in the campaign trail.
Well, two quick things. When anybody talks about tax policy from these foundations, what they never say to the American people is that when they talk about $7 trillion is the cost, that's using static modeling. I don't want to get too technical, but that is static modeling. It doesn't take into effect the...
Newsom passed a bill out here for 65 cents in the gallon to try and make California fossil fuel free. It's so stupid. But when you tell them that electric vehicle batteries are made in like these giant factories using fossil fuels, they're like, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you say that. They're so like elusive to like common sense.
Impact of lower tax rates and economic growth as a result. So no, it doesn't cost $7 trillion. And the reason why we know this is because under his first tax policy, which is current tax law today, the Democrats and all these outside groups said it would cost $5 trillion. The truth is the federal government raised more tax revenue that was ever modeled or contemplated by any of these organizations. So President Trump's tax policy is actually going to be a net benefit to the United States because it's going to breed more economic growth. Number two, there are massive areas in the federal government that do need to be scaled back, that need to be cut. One of them that we have to take a long, hard look at are the Green New Deal tax credits in the Inflation Reduction Act. We need to look at those. because they told us in D.C. it would cost $276 billion. Well, if you go talk to Goldman Sachs and anybody on the street, the value is actually $1.4 trillion. So if you want to find money to pay for tax policy so we can grow our economy, so working families can get ahead with no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, how about we get rid of the Democrat spending boondoggles that came in under the last administration?
I want to make sure I ask you about something reported by the
True.
Daily Wire. They broke a story a couple of days ago about FEMA.
Dude. Oh, the FEMA thing. Okay, I hope this is what they're about to talk about, where the FEMA person was like, we're not helping anybody that has Trump signs in their yard. That is the most mind-boggling, hateful, like, demonic thing I've ever heard. Okay? That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. That you can outright say we are not providing aid due to a certain group of people due to their political alignment. That is nuts. That is crazy. And if you disagree, you are one of the worst people that has ever lived.
Home state is, as well as where you serve, Florida.
Plain and simple.
Your district has been hit very hard by numerous big storms the last couple of years. Daily Wire reporting that people were told when they're out canvassing in Central Florida looking for people who may need help, that FEMA workers were told to avoid homes that had Trump symbols or Trump flags. FEMA responded to Daily Wire saying this: "We are horrified that this took place and therefore have taken extreme actions."
They should go to jail.
This situation. Governor DeSantis says he's launching an investigation there.
Yeah.
What extreme actions do you think should be taken? And is that something Congress gets involved with?
Anybody involved with that should be fired immediately, not asked to resign.
Thrown in jail.
Not brought in front of a congressional hearing. They should be fired immediately. We are not going to have a country where we're going to decide who gets help and who doesn't based upon who you support politically.
And the thing is, imagine, this is the part that, like, again, has the right or even people in the middle so fed up with the left, is because it's imagine the other half said that, hey, we're not helping or providing any natural disaster support to anyone with Kamala Harris signs. Dude, that would absolutely destroy. But you bring that common sense to the table, and they're like, no, we think that's right. You know, Trump, they're all right. Nobody should help racists. I can't believe you're here to help racists and homophobes and transphobes and blah, 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 blah. And it's, dude, that whole situation was absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. What up, Austin? Wow, what a stream.
When it comes to FEMA, my recommendation for the Trump transition team is that FEMA becomes a standalone agency that directly reports to the White House. You have to get it out of Homeland Security. That agency is a massive labyrinth with a bunch of different departments. FEMA should be a direct report agency to the White House, because when disaster recovery needs to take place, we need quick answers out of FEMA, not bureaucratic ones that go through the labyrinth of federal departments. My district dealt with this firsthand a couple years ago during Hurricane Ian. It was very hard to get answers out of FEMA, still somewhat hard to get answers out of FEMA. I think if you talk to any governor, they would agree with this. FEMA needs to be a direct report agency to the White House. That way, the people of America, when disaster strikes, they know that this has the first priority of the president. The president has eyes on it, and they're going to get the help that they need immediately.
Well, we know folks in your area still need a lot of help, as well as the Helene victims all through Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, Tennessee as well.
Absolutely crazy.
We're tracking that too. Congressman, thank you very much.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
That was really good. A lot of information there, a lot of opinions. I guess it was mainly about I thought it was gonna be more about the Joe Rogan stuff, but it really wasn't, because I think the Joe Rogan thing is such an interesting topic and on so many different layers, because everyone, I know the left is kind of freaking out over Joe Rogan saying like, oh, we need to find our own Joe Rogan, or Joe Rogan's this like billionaire ass kissing guy and blah, 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 blah. And in reality, Rogan's been like a registered Democrat and very openly a Democrat for like ever. You know, he endorsed Bernie. He said really positive things about Obama. It's crazy, you know? And it's like, but y'all don't want to pay attention to why people are swapping. They really don't. They're pointing fingers. It's like the Spider-Man meme where everyone's pointing fingers, but they just don't look at themselves and go, we should really look at why we're fucking up around here, huh? They don't want to.